Oh, and we are off for episode 18 of Run for the Roses on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I am Ryan, Real Money / Real Digital Horseman Kramer. It is football season after all. And I am joined by the Chief Horse Officer of SGPN Stables, the breeder of Season 29 Kentucky Derby winner. He's ready to gig. Mr. Space Rothstein, a.k.a. the man in the desert, Mr. Scott Bowser. How are we feeling today on the precipice of the NFL season?
I'm feeling good, even though the Eagles didn't cover the spread last night for me. That would have been a much better way for me to start this season, but I'll take what I can get. I got a stack of sheets here ready to pound the pavement this weekend, so let's fucking get it on.
Yeah, not that this is a football show, but boy, nothing like a tiny little lightning delay to call everyone or to call the NFL soft. Come on, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah, dude.
This is football.
And it just made it so I was that much drunker at the end of the game, dude. That's all that accomplished, dude. Like
I knew it was I knew you were having a good time when you decided you gave me a look and said no words, just I'm leaving. I'm pulling the ripcord and I'm parachute's coming out. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, dude. Your cousin's buddy, man, Dean, was buying a lot of cocktails last night, and some listeners bought us some shots to get things started, and it was all downhill from there.
And maybe a great transition to the show today. Loaded show. Of course, you're watching Run for the Roses, a digital horse / photo finish game. If you're new to the game or you aren't in the game yet, you definitely want to hop in using the code SGPN. Get you into SGPN Turf Club. Turf Club gets you access to free rolls. We're going to have the Turf Classic next week. Postponed it. Weren't even planning on really doing a show this week. But then, as you can see above us, the sky fell.
Yeah,
and we had to come to the situation and address some of the things happening in the community. But free rolls again, Turf Classic next week, Dirt Classic in week 4 on Derby Day. You're also going to get breed rebates. There's going to be maybe you're new to the game. Maybe we kick you some horses. Maybe we hook you up with some nice breed discounts. So hop in the game, code SGPN, get you in the Turf Club, get you all sorts of access to fun stuff, including some of our horses. We're now at the point where we are more than happy to loan out horses, even for racing. I've gotten to the point, Bowser. So again, SGPN, get in the game. Like I said, loaded show. Thought it was going to be a non-show. That we kicked out the Turf Classic. It's NFL Week 1. I'm in Vegas. Have a really loaded schedule. But then, last week, or was it? Yeah, no, it was Monday. Labor Day. I'm off the grid. Bowser's made some arrangements to handle breeding and doesn't go down. Some issues with, we'll just call it technical issues.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how all the circuits are lined up on that stuff. So I don't know exactly.
I do come strangely equipped to maybe talk on some of that stuff. I mean, I don't know the back end. I'm not a crypto guy, but I did spend the majority of my career before what I do now, running teams that essentially ran the shared infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure for Hulu / Disney. So I know a little bit about scaling problems. If you remember Hulu, I was actually, fun fact about me, I was hired at Hulu shortly after Hulu crashed for the Super Bowl, which was obviously not a good look and also a scaling issue. So breeding fails. They postpone it to Wednesday. It fails again. And then there's just an incredible discourse that then takes place on social media. Because as we know, Bowser, we love this game.
Yes.
We love playing this game.
Yes.
And we also love the characters in the ecosystem for this game because, I mean, I respect the goats of the game. I respect the big dogs. I respect getting upset when something isn't working as you would like it to be. But my God, do we have an overweight? Let me rephrase that. As a photo finish community, we are overweight with whiny bitches. and we are overweight with people. Now, I'll give credit. Some people actually bitch and then come up with a solution, which I don't mind. I don't mind voicing your feedback if you have a constructive solution. Most people don't have solutions. Most people are just whiny little bitches. It reminds me of like you're playing online Madden or something and the server crashes and everyone wants to kill someone because the game got, some short-sighted, oh my God, the sky is falling. Again, that's why we titled this episode, The Sky is Falling. So I thought it would be good, and Bowser, this was really Scott thought it would be good if we came on, maybe talked through what happened, reacted to some of the kerfuffle on social media, maybe gave out our general opinion about what's going on, and then to keep things light. I think we finished with some fun NFL college football bets.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah, no, and like, dude,
start. You were sitting in the command center when things went down.
right here, yeah.
So like, give me, and you were in give me a vibe check at that. Like, give me kind of a oral history of what happened.
Well, so what I kind of saw was the way I saw it like unfold in real time, like it was 9/11 of digital horses. Like it was basically like, okay, right when I hopped on, the site started freezing. Like I wasn't able to access our mares or anything. And I'm like, oh, it looks like it's crashing. I'm like, let me check Discord and see what people are saying. And basically everybody's having the same problem. But then I saw a couple people and they're saying, well, breeds are selling out, because I guess on like a breed bot, you could follow which breeds were actually getting through. And so it looks like it was something tied to the API. And this is like, I'm not going to pretend I know anything about this stuff, but the stuff wasn't working right because of these like bots that people, from what it sounded like is like, it wasn't the bots that really crashed it. It was them trying to keep the bots out that crashed it more.
So here's what I would say. And again, I'm a very uneducated take. It's NFL week 1. I've spent too little time this week in the game with our horses, whatever. Haven't been kicking it in the barn, feeding carrots to our horses. Generally, when you have scaling issues, and I don't want to speculate, but generally scaling issues come down to a couple different choke points. And I think we should get into a conversation of bots good versus evil a little bit later. But in the end, like automation, I think the reality is that most of the game needs automation. The game needs automation no different than DFS needs automation. Best ball needs automation, because the reality is the top 2% of stables have half of the volume of horses, or whatever that number is. The big stables are what carry this game, and that's a harsh reality with any ecosystem like this. Again, DFS is a great comparison. So in order for the thing to work, you 100% need to open up and allow for automatable processes. Now, we're even in an area where like it would be nice to have some better automation that I could slap on maybe our lower grade horses, or a situation where I didn't have to put as much personal touch on it. Now, as far as the breeding, I'm going to pause here, and I gotta say this out loud because I see who's complaining in social. I got to know whose bots are out there, who has bots, how many of them exist. Because when I hear about this scaling issue, like I was about to explain, it comes down to three areas to me where something broke. One is that the bots themselves, right? The trouble when you open an API and you allow for people to access that API is you never test it in all the different ways that people will fuck up trying to interface with it.
Yeah.
And so right there, they probably already have learned a lot of lessons dealing with third-party tools. But the reality is your average developer nowadays sucks. That's just the reality of it. So the average developer probably is just using ChatGPT or something to help them write some of this code, interface with this API, whatever that is, which could lead to, an infinite loop that says keep requesting if you fail, or the kind of stuff that would create a denial of service type attack. So that's one way you can take stuff down. Coming from a database and systems background, that is often the problem, is that you have an aggressive retry strategy that only gets worse when the system starts slowing down. Oh, I didn't get my request in a second. Let me try again. Didn't get it. Wham, bam. And next thing you know, a single request can spool up to
I
thousands.
see this all the time on the old Sigma run game at the D, the mechanical horse racing game, where it's an old coin operated one. People's quarter doesn't work, and then they start jamming a bunch in there right away instead of just letting the thing chill and play out. I mean,
now you have a bunch of quarters stuck in there. So that's kind of element one. That's the exterior taking down due to maybe, less than best practice or the lack of guardrails causing the outside, causing the inside to kind of tip over. Now, phase two, or the second thing that can be broken in a scaling situation, is that you're not scaling the right resources. So as the bot traffic is coming up, whatever is receiving those API calls, whatever is translating those API calls to database calls or data store, whatever type of relational or non-relational database you're using, that can be an area where, do you have enough connections to your database? Do you have it? Whatever that is, right? So the scaling element can simply be, now you've created your own bottleneck in how much traffic you expected to receive. Now, the third piece is even deeper down the stack, that where you're dealing with either database, data, storage, bottleneck. What does that mean? Well, you didn't expect all this data to be flowing in the database. You didn't index the right thing. You didn't organize the data in the right way. Massive request. Each request is, you tested it with a little bit of data. Those requests were fast. As soon as you had a lot of data, those requests don't happen as quickly. Anyone who does stuff with R, anyone who does any sort of data mining around NFL or college football, the larger the data set, the more dimensions, the more complex things get. It slows down in a non-linear way. So with those three kind of key elements being the technical, probably I think Ian mentioned something about a database too. So regardless of any of that to me, that's normal in a technological sense to run into these issues when you introduce a new behavior and you are introducing a probably larger than expected traffic load.
Yeah.
Now, I say all of that and I come back to who are the people complaining aren't the people with the bots. So who has the bots? I would love for someone to reach out to us and give me a little. I know everything's fucking secretive in this world, and even some of the connections we've had to make have been I feel like we're dealing with CIA.
We should get trench coats and fucking meet hats and meet.
Yeah, we got
garage somewhere.
we got a drop point where we're putting an envelope on the back of a bench in a park and waiting for someone to pick it up. And so I would love to understand who is the bot population servicing, because the next step I would take is, I don't think breeding is the place that you need to automate. And I understand why we want to do it, and I'm not opposed to it, but I'm trying to understand why this is the tipping point. Why this is a very containable event. It's a very understandable event. The volume is relatively static season over season.
At the end of the day, it just got pushed back a week. It's not like the end of the world here.
Yeah, so that brings up we pushed it back once. It failed in the same way. Again, if I was the, whatever title I have, vice president of shared services or whatever, I would have concerns that we failed once and then failed again. Now, I don't know if they failed in the same way or if it was you fix one bottleneck only to push that bottleneck down the road to another bottleneck. But to your point, breeding is this relatively ephemeral thing that doesn't go away season to season. The only example you can give me of the breeding going away season to season is horses retiring. Yeah. And so from a supply demand standpoint, the demand of the big horses, the horses that will sell out, the horses that people are getting upset about, that demand is organic. And I don't necessarily know if automation is the reason, because we know there's a cooling off period. We know there's these kind of thresholds to let someone eat up all the breeds. And so anyway, I say all that to both, explain to people that I'm not a fucking idiot when it comes to technology. And I'm not going to be one of these mouth breathers who just screams at them about how this is unacceptable. I've been there. I'm when you work in technology or you build technology, you only get to have these conversations when shit fails. and you should expect failure, or you're not pushing on the edge, especially nowadays. Like, we don't pay attention to our infrastructure the same way we used to. It's all cloud. It's all someone else's computer. We hit a button, we scale up our servers, we scale up our Redis, we scale up our database, whatever, our load balancers. And so I think we should stop here. And then, to your point, this, again, going back in time to Monday, this then led to a tremendous amount of outcry from the community that started with like mouth breathing type, you guys are idiots. How do you fail like this?
Yeah. And here's what I want to really kind of hammer here with that is like, dude, I've seen this in other things in my life. Like, dude, I did stand up for 10 years, dude. Talk about a group of whiny bitches that will complain about every little thing that happens in the world. But like, dude, like, I think a lot of people it's like that argument where the thing that's being argued about isn't really the thing. It's something that was bubbling under the surface. And now, like, when they immediately go to these other things, just when something like this goes wrong, you could tell they were just sitting there stewing on something for a while instead of trying to be productive. And, like, I mean, I see this a lot on there where people complaining about the amount of new stables or this and that, but I don't see any of those people doing any attempt at outreach. If anything, they're just shitting on the game and making it more difficult to get people involved. And so, yeah, it seems like there was this whatever was bubbling under the surface for a lot of people just came out in this moment, and then they ran it back on Wednesday, which was just childish and embarrassing. Clearly the team wants this to work, guys. Like, it's not some like Third Time makes their money pretty much on the breeding fees right now. And so they're going to get this fixed and sorted. Trust me. Like, it's just so silly.
Well, and I think that's, again, like, coming back to there's a number of things that could happen to the game that I would share in this type of outcry if it seemed like it was something that couldn't be reversed, couldn't be undone. It was, I mean, like, I've heard stories. I think it was Wolof. I was listening to a stream with maybe Wolof, and he talked about how in the first iteration of Ian's game, they had to just, at some point, like, they realized something was broken, and they literally had to reset back to season 1. So, like, imagine if that happened, right? Like, that would be a fair reason to be like, what are we doing here? You go look at a lot of the other crypto games, you see some of the stuff that happens there, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, the fear of rug pull, the fear of, like, that. I get why that keeps people on edge, but to your point, breeding, again, how people make money in this game, how the game makes money, no one is not interested in it working to the best ability. And so, to your point, when it some people just came out and said, like, this sucks, but here's maybe a solution. This sucks, but here's a solution. And then you have the other people that said, this is horrible, the game sucks. And so, yeah, I think to your point, like, most of those people that are just throwing out the complaints without a solution, they aren't actually invested. I receive those people as they're not actually that invested in the game. And just like anything else, what gets you attention in real life? Acting like an asshole, being a baby. Like, this is the attention mechanism of the younger generation. And so
the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Like,
it does. And that, unfortunately, that's kind of how the world's going, with more and more automation, less and less human contact. But and you can understand why via internet communications, people are willing to be assholes. Now, you brought it to my attention, but let's give a shout out to Bryce for a second. Again, not being asked to do this by Third Time at all. In fact, I'm sure if Third Time fired up and saw that I tagged him in a stream called "The Sky Is Falling," they might not like that. Now, obviously a little satirical here, but what was I about to say, Bowser? Fuck.
Bryce.
Oh, Bryce is sitting there doing his community management, interfacing with all these angry people. And like, personally, I've been in that situation. It does take a certain type of person to be like, I'm sorry, would you like fries with that? I'm sorry, would you like fries with that? I'm sorry, would you like me to upgrade your smoothie?
Yeah.
And
dude, he really, like I texted you, I'm like, dude, he has the patience of a Buddhist monk right now. Like, this isn't really, like, impressive what he's doing. And yes, fuck the Cowboys. But, like, no, but Bryce, I gotta just, my hat's off to you, Bryce. Tip of the cap. Like, dude, amazing work there. doing your best to try and, like, when the villagers are at the gates with the pitchforks, man, you were sitting there trying to talk reason to them, and like it didn't go unnoticed. That's all I gotta say. Like.
And I would go a step further, as far as the third time in the team. If there's one thing, you can get mad at a decision. I think everyone's entitled to be mad about a decision, but I think one of the things that Ian and the team have been very good about, it's honestly one of the things you shared with me early on in getting me into the game, is like, hey man, so many of these crypto projects, they don't show their face.
Yeah.
This whole team is showing their face. And I think with Ian, he takes it a step further. I mean, it's easy to make fun of August We Moon or some of this other stuff, but transparency, right? This is the kind of stuff.
It's really good because, I mean, just a quick aside, like, dude, in the other game, I don't know if you were aware of God, what was the guy's name? Like Maui Dan or something. But he basically was a guy who worked there and figured out the code on a lot of the top horses and bought them for cheaper and all this stuff. And like, and like, dude, it was a huge controversy, and the game really never recovered from that scandal. Like, it just, and so like I said, like the fact that these guys are fully doxxed, like this is like, dude, like just because they're putting their face out there doesn't mean you need to just like rub it in shit every time something bad, like a little hiccup happens, because that's really all this was in the grand scheme of things.
Well, and I think in general, what I was going to get to there, again, coming from a real like big boy technology operation, working at a couple different companies, like this type of failure is the number one thing. You want to know a good organization that about this type of failure, and about the details of what happened. I think the hardest thing for a lot of people to do is, one, admit that they screwed up, and two, to tell you how they screwed up.
Yeah, it's like alcohol.
Very, very often my job, I was kind of sitting in the middle to upper management world, and a lot of my job was often shedding light on the failures. Because if you shed light on a failure, it creates a little bit more understanding, but also then understanding and urgency to fix the problem.
Yeah.
When you just say, "Oh, nothing happened here. We don't know. This wasn't on our end," then you're dealing, or it could have been very easy for them to blame third-party developers.
Yeah.
They took our site down. We're going to turn off bots. They didn't do any of that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think like from a high-level perspective, these are all like symptoms of a good organization and a good operation. Sharing your product roadmap as much as you can publicly on social media is a symptom of an organization that you want to get behind. We're streaming live. We're using a platform called Restream, and if I could tell you the amount of bullshit stuff they try to hide from me, it's like, what the fuck? And so these are symptoms of a positive organization that is trying to do things the right way. Now, failure happens and we get past it, but I think, which then I think brings up the valid, before we get into the community ideas, it brings up the valid like existential debate of, should we allow, like, are bots good or are bots evil?
Yeah, well, like, okay, so we were talking earlier of like, yeah, this game really is supported by the super users, quote unquote, of like the top 5% of the stables and whatnot. And so I do think we need to have tools in place to make things easier on them to a degree, to make
Bowser, let's be blunt. Could we use a third-party tool?
Yeah. Yeah, full disclosure.
Yeah, would we be as successful without that third-party tool?
Probably not. No.
Probably not. And
and like, dude, it's not just the tool, it's a tool, a combination of like a lot of spreadsheets we make and this and that. But yeah, when it comes down to it, that really has made things a lot.
But if it was just the beginning and it was just us like building robust Google Sheets with, with all the information we want to track and all the information we want to look at, it's a time thing, right? It's an efficiency thing. Yeah. And so that's why, like, so the bots are good debate is, it's an efficiency play. You want to help the big stables be efficient for two reasons. One, time. Like I'm not a full-time horseman. You aren't either.
No.
And so time is important. But also too, it allows for, in the case of we're not really a big stable compared to actual big stables,
No.
but it also is a mechanism to get more people on the track, get more horses on the track. Like I said, if I could, subscribe to something where I'd have to put some inputs in, but it would allow to like maybe do a little bit more automation around racing, our lower end stuff, the stuff that I care about, but I don't care about as much as the top end stuff. Again, that would be a good efficiency play for us. So from that perspective, bots are very good.
Yeah, I guess my main knock against them really would just be more, we can't let them become too much where you got to get this tool, that tool, this tool, that tool, just to have any chance of competing, because then you're kind of, we want to make this as welcoming as possible. We don't want it to be threatening to new players. We don't want them to feel overwhelmed right out the gate. What's up, Japan? Dab time is right. But
no, and that's where I think that's where the evil debate comes in, because you have this barrier to entry problem where, do we need the tool? If we were a smaller scale stable, would we need the tool? I don't know if we would. I think we have learned stuff from the tool, but we've learned more from experiences. We've learned more from talking to other people and just seeing, like, studying other horses, bloodlines, all these other things. And so the tool makes us do things faster and might give us a little bit of insight where we would have missed. But I think for the most part, it's an efficiency play. And I don't think you need it if you're operating on a smaller scale. If we were breeding, even 10 to 20 horses a season, I don't necessarily we would feel like we would need it as much for racing. It still probably becomes useful for breeding, but even the game is update, inbreeding, some of these other stuff is no longer a problem. And so I certainly think that the good versus evil debate starts there with the barrier to entry. And then also, that we've seen it, the conversation, does this separate the big dogs from the smaller stables even more? I can see that argument. I can see how bots then, no different than DFS, right? That was a problem in DFS as well, where, essentially, I don't want to say DFS is solved, but DFS is almost like poker. It's solved. If you're not doing it right, if it's not solved because player projection and player outcomes are very much random, but the construct of how to play DFS, how to play best ball is a little bit solved. And so when you add in AI and automation around that, you do create this barrier, this gap between, the guy firing his Sunday Millie Maker liner up on the shitter versus a guy max entering 150 lineups with a click of a button.
And DFS best ball, perfect analogy here, because, dude, just as a person who's heavily into best ball and stuff, and digital horses, dude, if I try and talk, it's a whole different language to normies. You know what I'm saying?
And that's reality. That's the reality of anything.
And I talk to people like at work that are like really into their home fantasy football leagues, and then I just start talking about best ball, and they are lost 2 seconds in, because I'm talking about double bringbacks and whatnot. And, it's triple stacks and
and that actually brings up a great point, because that's you're in it. When you're in it, you're in it. And when you're not in it, you're not in it. I think that's the biggest problem with the barrier to entry conversation. Yeah. I'm with you, right? Like, there's time, like I was doing a radio hit with some Indiana radio station, and the guy was like, football expert, could you name every starting quarterback in the NFL? And I said, that's ridiculously easy. If you want to make it challenging, let's do backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, let's do kickers, dude. That's where when you did that bare knuckle draft.
Well, by the way, shout out to the FFPC if you're not familiar, the Fantasy Football Players Championship, high stakes fantasy out here. The return of the bare knuckle, it actually came back after not filling for 2 years. The last time it filled is when I did it, Bowser. It's a 28-round best ball draft, kickers and defenses, where you are not allowed a single note, can't talk to anyone. It's real hardcore anyway. It's back, but that's a great example, right? Because that's the kind of, at my peak of best ball, like, I'm doing drafts like that with no note, and I'm going to, if I walk into a home league, I'm gonna murder these guys just based on knowledge alone. Forget roster construction and all these other things.
Like, last year,
the field.
last year I was in the work league. I absolutely smoked the field because it's literally putting a shark in a guppy tank, like,
Yeah, and shout out to Sesame Chicken wanting to know if I can do all the quarterbacks in the Sun Belt. I couldn't, but you know who could?
Colby could.
Colby Dant, Ryan Mack, like our college guys could. And again, it's one of those things when you're in it, you're in it. And so I think bringing it back to the horse game, when you're in it, you don't necessarily see the problems for someone who isn't in it.
Yep.
And I think while the priority for the game, strangely, still should be on the big stables, the big stables don't do a good job of coming to consensus, debating things reasonably, understanding different opinions. It's a lot of, and I think I've actually come to this conclusion that the reason why the top stables in this game don't get along is because they're all the same personality type. They're all smartest guy in the room. They're all like, they've all been successful at this game already. They all probably view the money they've been extracting from the game as a revenue stream. And so just like any other business, if you see something that could impact your revenue stream, you might scrap and claw. So very difficult conversation to have there, but I do feel the big stables should get, the feedback should be heard. I think the problem with if I'm giving feedback to the big stables is, maybe you guys need to do a better job of not being babies sometime. And not like if I was coaching someone in a workplace, again, taking it back to my tech experience at Hulu, I had a lot of engineers that were the smartest fucking guy in the room. Like I had guys like, real good, real sharp guys who fucking couldn't get along with anyone because their idea was the best. And they didn't do a good job of understanding where their idea might fall short or where someone else's idea might actually enhance their idea. And so I think that's a big problem. Yeah, shout out to teamwork. They're all the same person. They are all the same person. I mean,
I like to think it's just one actual person, and it's just multiple personalities causing them to.
and I'll give credit to the big dogs who go on camera. I know so many people in the crypto world are scared to show their face, which I understand that. Just go read the story about the founder of Ledger, and I understand why you wouldn't want people to know you have big bags. But at the same time, that doesn't exclude you from being a productive member of the community. It doesn't exclude you from being a reasonable human being. I think we're back to that. Like, I'm behind a keyboard. I'm just going to say some shit because I don't care and there's no real impact. And so, we're rambling here a little bit, but back to the bots are evil conversation. That's the evil part of it, is it's going to create a larger gap between the top and the bottom, and the top doesn't get along, like the oligarchy example we've described. And so which begs the question, what are bots doing for the little guy? What are bots doing to help the little guy? We understand what the bots will do for the big guy, right? Efficiency, automation. But what can the bots do for the little guy? It doesn't have to be third party. It can be, third time built or whatever. That's the problem I want to hear. I want to hear people's opinion on. Like, cool, this is a great solution for X, but how does this help the other people? And so maybe this is a good transition into some of the ideas people had in the community. Also, I know we wanted to react and roast some people who had some complaints about what was going on, but excuse me, in Vegas, got a little Vegas voice. So, Bowser, I don't know what you want to start with. We can start by roasting people that were being whiny bitches. We can start by discussing some of the big dogs.
I mean, kind of already done that. I think we've done a pretty good job of roasting them already here.
No, you ranted too much on the phone call. I'll tee you off. Okay, so I saw a couple complaints about how inconsiderate this failure was to people who lived in time zones that forced them to stay up for breeding. Now, context, we play another game called Footium. We have often had time slots that are in the middle of the fucking night in America. It's part of the game. So, Bowser, what do you say to people that were upset with third time because it inconvenienced their sleep schedule?
Like, fuck off. Like, dude, I wake up 4 a.m. Pacific time for work every Monday through Thursday, right? I work 4 days a week. I work from like 5:30 a.m. to and I work out in the middle of the desert. I work from 5:30 a.m. to about 4 p.m. every day. So, dude, and I'm able to like hit every little deadline we have in these games and whatnot. So I don't want to hear it from anyone. Like it's possible. You can live your life. You can do these things. Take a nap earlier if you have to. Like fuck off. But like for real, it's like because at that point, okay, well, what about the person in Eastern Europe? Maybe that was it's 3 a.m. there. Like we could just do this all day. There's a 24-hour time zones in this world, dude. It's never going to be perfect for everyone. But dear God, like the people that just immediately wanted to, when the breed didn't work and they just immediately want to trash the timing, the time slot, dude, that is completely unrelated to this. You are not helping the situation at all. Go back and jerk off in a bucket of chutney sauce.
Ooh, chutney sauce getting a little shrapnel here.
Yeah,
not even the holiday season, Bowser. I know you make a nice chutney.
No, I'm anti-chutney, dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you make all.
I don't chut, dude.
Bowser is essentially an old Italian woman when it comes to his recipes, and so I assumed when you referenced chutney, you had a good recipe for it.
No. I do have good Alfredo sauce though.
Yeah, I think those types of complaints are the metaphorical representation of someone who is probably not worth even listening to, because it's just like, where do you go? Like, where does the conversation go from there?
Yeah, because
we'll change it for you.
Yeah. It's basically think about me.
Which again, I think some of this is immaturity.
I guarantee you too, the team has done a lot of research into the where the player user base is coming from in a lot of these time zones. Like like that's for sure happening here. So like, dude, like, yeah.
Well, the move from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. was 100% for that.
Yeah.
It certainly opens up, a little bit more middle of the day activity. And again, it's like you're in a 20, I don't know if you know this, but the Earth is some people believe it's flat, but the Earth is a ball spinning through space, and there's 24 time zones. So yeah, you're certainly going to run into that problem. And I echo your fuck off sentiment with that. Now,
hey, we fought a war against the king for a reason, dude.
Now, again, Third Time didn't ask us to do this, but there were also another common thread line was you guys are trying to take the game down. Why are you doing this? You're impacting my stable's ability to keep up with the big stables. This is unfair. So basically this is unfair. You guys are idiots. You're not trying to help me.
And according to these fucking beauties, dude, like we were about to have 35 or so SS horses this season, even though we haven't had one since, because they all thought they were getting 5 or whatever, and it just wasn't lined up for them and they're not going to get it now because they have to wait a few days to put it in.
Like if I'm being honest, I have like these types of complaints are interesting because they're not coming from the big stables, because the big stables understand that they're just going to reset and do what they're going to do whenever the breeding period opens. And from someone like you and I, we've talked about this openly on public airwaves, but like you don't get the breed this month, maybe you get it next month, whatever. Like to me, the people that should be complaining on that front are the people that are trying to keep up on the edge with the big basically the big stables. And for us, like if we have to wait a season or two and save 50%, 60% on the breed fee, that's not the worst outcome. And I think for most smaller stables, that shouldn't be the worst outcome.
Yeah, I'll say this. For most smaller stables, for like 95% of the stables in the game, you should be trying your hardest to find the obscure matches that aren't selling a lot of stud covers. First off, those owners are far more likely to make a deal with you in there, and then dude, you want to, like, we talk about this before, but like that blood permissiveness, you want to be able to be open to all these top end stuff. So when you do get that good one, when we get a Tamale Lady, when we get a Mona Lisa Smile, we can breed these with really good horses on the outside because we've done a good job of going to the road less traveled, so to speak,
I also think you have to like back to DFS or best ball or whatever. You have to think about the idea of spending up in the context of, you might hit the breed 1 out of 10 times, whatever that ratio is, but is it really worth paying 4x the minimum, 5x the minimum for that shot now versus paying 2x the minimum in a couple months. Again, like where is your stable? Are you really on the edge? Probably not. If you're like most of the people I saw complaining, not on the edge.
No.
Like if I don't see you as a competitor to us and you're beneath us, this is an odd complaint because I don't think you're swimming in that ocean.
Yeah, teamwork nails it here. Where it's like people forget it requires a shitload of luck. It absolutely does. Like, dude, I mean, like hell, our Kentucky Derby winner was such a luck. I mean, literally such a lucky horse. And like, there's that. I mean,
luck's part of it. And I think that's why, like, when you bring up the idea that you should be willing to dig in, look around. I think the other thing that happens in this game, and shout out to some of the big stables that have been great. I know the Evil Empire, as he's rebranded, but the commish, great marketer of studs, very good for him. But guess what happens when you get your studs, a lot of stud covers, you create more of a sample size to then have the positive outcomes and say, hey, look, this is the best stud in the game. It's created the most value, or it's created the most. Because those metrics are always volume metrics. They're never like per breed, how good. Like I would love to see someone do a breakdown of per breed, what is the return on a Lucy Juice horse, or on, where you're not worried about, oh, this just has the biggest volume. I want to see a per horse basis. And
especially when it had like 30 back when there was 35 covers a season. Now it's down to 18.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. And then shout out to people who are concerned that my room is on fire. Pro tip when traveling to Vegas, I've been doing this now since the VSiN show started. This is our third season doing it. I've traveled with this humidifier. They used to give them to you for free back in Vegas, but then COVID happened, and apparently humidifiers transmit COVID, so they stopped doing that. And then they brought it back and said, actually, it's okay to do it, but we're going to charge you $50 a night. Fun fact, if you're on the strip, Palazzo has a CVS. You can buy the exact model behind me, humidifier, for like $35. Not a promotion. So yeah, just keeping the humidity levels up in here. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the part where the breeding conversation is interesting to me, because I don't think, like, honestly, like, we've not had the best success paying up for those big dog breeds, and I don't even think our stable is at a point where we're truly on that edge competing with these guys at the level where we should be paying up for.
I really don't like going more than like 2.5x above the minimum if we can help it. Like we've done it a few times where we paid up, and it's like, yeah, like to your point, like I'd rather have 7.
So anyway, the urgency around why are people freaking out? Why is the sky falling for so many stables just because breeding failed and they had to reset it? Yeah, sure, you think it shows some general instability in the game, fine. But I'd also ask you to find me another game that's like going out of their way to get compliance certifications, going out of their way to be transparent about their roadmap, et cetera.
Yeah,
et cetera.
And I mean, it kind of buried the lead on the big news this week that they just became like officially like registered. Yeah, I forget exactly what it's called. I don't want to, but it's basically proving that it's like a provable, like legit game. Like.
Well, and a lot of that stuff, I mean, again, coming from a public company where, you're there's all sorts of compliance related things that you have to go through that are generally a lot of process. It's technology, but it's really process. It's really like, how easily can you, make your data fake? How easily can you change stuff without there being a record of it? The stuff that really does make it a lot safer to work with that company, because if you're not familiar with Sarbanes-Oxley, for example, it came out of the Enron stuff, and basically it created a whole fucking industry that's bullshit, but it created this whole industry that was all about making sure that companies weren't lying to their stockholders, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? How can you trust a company if they're just going to share the information they want to share with you? And so these bits of compliance just allow for checks and balances to be in place. And again, not a sign of a company that wants to rug pull you. Like, this is the last everywhere I've worked, I've had, when you work deep in the stack, you always have to deal with compliance, database, servers, network. And the reality is it's not fun work. It doesn't create any revenue. So there's no return on investment. It is purely cost center activity. And so you explain to me why why Third Time would waste any time, development energy, money on something that's not going to return back to them in the form of direct revenue because they want to do things the right way. And so that's kind of a, like, if you don't think the game is trying to do things the right way, you're just either you're an asshole or you're an asshole with a difference of opinions, which I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And there's a very few select people at the top who are probably assholes. I mean, you and I are assholes too, so I don't mean that in a bad way, with a difference of opinion, but willing to sit at the table and talk about it and have a constructive conversation. So, and I see, shout out to Sowers in the chat. Speaking of, when we were talking about all the big dog stables, we did get a chance to hang out. I've actually twice now hung out with Sowers in person. He knows ball. He's not what I was describing with some of the other top guys. And I'd also say with Sowers, like the conversations I've had with him or the times where he's spoken about the game on a mic to people, he very much is doing it in a way that is wanting to grow the game, wanting to highlight what is good about the game, why someone would want to invest in the game, and not just focusing on trying to shit on it. Now, I think some of the other big stables, I only see them pop up when they want to shit on something or tell the game how they could be doing it better. And so with that, I think maybe we do we want to hop into some of the ideas? Because I mentioned at the top, like, is breeding actually broken? Does it need to be fixed? And so with that, Bowser, we saw some ideas out there, whether it was the commish giving. In fact, let me pull it on the screen. It might be fun to look at.
Now, most of these ideas, I'm not gonna lie, I'll good in theory. But like, here's my thing. Where was this idea 2 weeks ago? Did you just bring this out because of this hiccup that happened this week? Because if you want to like, for people that just want to completely burn it down because they didn't get their way this week, I really don't. I could care less about hearing what they got to say. I'll be honest with you.
So the one of the more robust, and the commish is really good. I mean, I'd say that one of the things that
I definitely liked what he had kind of going here, but what I like is just the idea, just briefly, because I don't want to go down this line by line here, dude. It's way too much.
Well, I'm not going to go down that line, but I'm not going to go down.
But he writes novels, dude.
Well, honestly, though, here's what I'd say to that, though. Like, if you're going to come with a solution, at least put some thought into it.
No, and he's thought out. And I love the idea of like having auctions in the game in general. I always thought that if you watch the Netflix show about the Triple Crown races and stuff, the Race for the Crown, which I actually wanted to name this show, but they're like, I was like, oh, there's already a horse race show named that. It makes sense though. But anyway, like one of the best episodes of that show is when they go to the Keeneland auction and seeing these big dog stables, like in real life, like these billionaire fucking horse owners just going dick to dick in these fucking auctions, being like, no, I'm buying that filly. You're not getting her. Like, it's pretty impressive how they go about it. And like, yeah, I would love to see something like that in the game, basically. And so, yeah, he has kind of an idea here with it. And basically, it's like doing a blind auction day one. I would like to see a live auction, just full, dude. Let's get an auctioneer out there. Let's go hard.
From a content perspective, they're like certainly in the future, like for the best of the best. I essentially, let's say where all the SSS horses are out there, and then that actually could be a fun content idea.
Yeah, now, and also one thing that'd be cool about it too is just like you have like I don't know, it could be really cutthroat, like I don't know, like I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
Well, no, I think that's what makes it interesting. Is I think back to the oligarchy or whatever, the NFL owner analogy, all the top dogs hate each other. So the idea of creating more competition amongst them in these fun ways for content purposes is interesting. I think the problem there is most of these guys don't want to be content creators.
No.
And so they're not that interested in that shit. Now, going into what essentially the commish is proposing here, which we haven't really even commented on his rebrand.
And see, here's one thing I would like about the whatchamacallit here too is for the auction. I think it would be cool if each of the 5 tracks, if the track owners sponsored auctions.
Yeah, so you're doing that thing where you're making the situation even more complicated. Now, I agree with you. There potentially could be something there, but and also we're in it, so let me explain what this is because calling it an auction might be confusing. But if you play fantasy football and you're familiar with the blind auction process that a lot of leagues use for waivers, essentially what he's proposing is something like that. The difference is that because you own the stud, you can essentially set a reserve price, think eBay or whatever other auction site. Now, I do think that we talked about separating the gap between big stables and small stables. This is a level of complexity that could be very intimidating to a new stable.
Yeah.
My counter argument to myself here is I don't think the new stables are going to be participating in these auctions. Again, these auctions should only be for the horses that are clearly going to be selling 10K, whatever, 2X or higher stud covers. And so I think for the most part, this eliminates a lot of people from being in consideration. Now, certainly you have some, internal breed conversation around like, how do you get all the breeds you want to get? Does it work the same way? Can you protect some of your own?
And to take it a step further, like a lot of new stables, I don't even know if they should be breeding. They should probably just be playing the claimers for a while until they understand horses, yeah, it took us a while before we started breeding. Like we were in the game for a few months there before we bred, like, and I think that definitely helped. Like we knew what we were kind of looking for in horses at that point.
But to kind of go down the cons, none, shut the fuck up. I like the attitude, but I also think like there are clear cons here. And again, he's in it. So the idea of, and for me, the idea of doing a blind auction sounds fun. Does not sound overly complicated. There would be a window where you'd have time to put the bids in, et cetera, et cetera. So none of that seems like a problem. Again, how many, let's just play a game, Bowser. How many horses would receive bids on their, it's less than, it's probably maybe a dozen or two per archetype. Like it's not a lot of horses.
No, it's not. Yeah.
And so we're now then my pushback becomes, well, we're creating a solution for a very tiny bit of the problem.
That's kind of my thing on it is like, yeah, this is cool and all, but like, it doesn't address like the overall stuff. And that's what we really need to be looking at it more macro right now instead of, but like we were saying earlier, it's that fine balance, right? Because you want to be accommodating to these super users, but you also want to make sure the whole thing as a whole runs smoothly. So
here, shout out to Absolute Horsepower. I can't say that I would necessarily behave the same way he is behaving in terms of how I would use my social media or how I would voice my opinion. But I did find his alternative to be, if I'm being completely honest, it's not as good from like a robust gameplay if everyone knows how to play the game 10 out of 10, but it is a much easier solution, and it is something that I think the average person could understand. Sure, there's a little bit more randomness, a little less skill, that in theory should allow the gap to close between the big stable and the small stable. And essentially his premise is fantasy football style. When you enter your fantasy draft with your college buddies, Yahoo or wherever creates a random order 30 minutes before the draft, whatever. So everyone's playing with the same set of cards. Now, again, this is another fun option for a problem that I don't think is a big problem. And so I think like we're going to end this episode basically saying, I don't think the sky is falling, obviously, that hopefully people understand comedy, but
I think like a draft idea is really cool. Cause like, I mean, dude, we're big fantasy guys. We love drafting. Like that's why I do best ball. I just love drafting a lot. We just finished one. What was it? 2 days ago. But like my problem with this, only my big pushback on that would be like, how does this play with the archetypes? Like if you have the number one overall pick, is there a number one overall pick for right dirt, right for turf, like how far do we break down? Like it almost seems like it would be like 8 separate mini drafts, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
My take on this is it would be per horse. Like everything is encapsulated into the idea of a horse.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so there's probably a happy medium here where, let's use us as an example. we have a horse we really like. We think it's going to be selling breed covers. Maybe there's a world where the premium horses can be put into auction or can be put into this draft flow where, maybe it's a play to get more money as the stud owner. And so you're adding this component only when needed or only when you see the need for it. Again, I think the purest form would be an auction. I think auction is just a thing that the game needs in general for the marketplace as well. If I see a horse I like, but I don't like the price, let me bid something. Let me put a bid in there so that person knows what I'd be willing to pay for it. Right now, having to do that through Discord and everything is clunky and certainly is a barrier to entry. But just in general, the idea slowly, like if you introduce the idea of auction to marketplace and got people familiar, it wouldn't be that big of a lift or a big jump for people to then get into that same idea for breeding. You go to your breed screen, you see the reserve price, and you just type in like, actually, I'm just going to go with the minimum, or I really want to get this one, so I'm going to, tick it up a little bit more. So, and you could also do things like, pristine auction, some of these others where you don't pay the dollar. You only pay as much as you need to pay to get it. And so, I think all of these things are fun. We could do this forever. Like, I love good game conversation, strategy conversation, but at the end of the day, I still think that we're getting very angry. And shout out to the willingness to put out a thread like this. It's good and bad for the game, right? Exposure to the game, but also like clearly there's some pent up stuff here with Absolute Horsepower. Clearly he doesn't get along with Ian and the team, or at least Ian blocked him, which, respect to people who block and mute people. It really, it's helped me a lot in social media, not because I want to block people that I interact with a lot, but the internet's filled with trolls. And so I guess that's my big take here to the big stables. Like, if you want to be taken, like, you should be taken seriously, but the best way to be taken seriously in the adult world is not to throw a tantrum, to be willing to have a conversation and not make it a name calling situation where if you kept telling me the thing that so I own a company, Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I'm the host of a podcast, Sports Gambling Podcast. If you come to me and say, hey man, love the show, don't love this thing you're doing, have you guys thought about doing this? I'm like, that's a great idea. If you come to me and say, hey man, your show sucks, you guys do this, this, and this, I'm like, cool, fuck off. Like, there's an element of tone to get a good message across. And I like, this is something I learned, tying it back to my time at Hulu and other corporations. If you are in a robust product organization, technology organization, you're not getting shit done if you don't have the ability to be political and have a conversation with someone and compromise and come to a consensus solution. Like, that's just the way the world works. And so if you lack that skill set, you lack the willingness to want to do that, you could be the best thing for the game and you're still not going to be productive. And what I would ask, I'd love to hear from any of the big stables. Why is this the biggest deal to you? Someone please give me like a wordy answer as to why this is worth dying on this hill on. It just seems so. Now, you want to talk about the lower race volume. You want to talk about races not filling. You want to talk about actual operational things going on that concern me about the game. Sure. But this just doesn't feel like one of them. No. And when you want to get stuff fixed, you can't have 10 problems when you only have time to fix 2. You have to consolidate on the things that matter. And again, my thesis on this whole episode is this is a much to do about nothing. Clearly, the team made some technological mistakes or overlooked some things. Very easy to do.
Yeah, and the breeds are going to be
as a former database engineer, there's nothing more overlooked than your database. And there were I couldn't tell you the amount of times that things just broke because developers are idiots. They didn't think about this. They didn't think about that. And there wasn't an operational guy there to tell them, hey, this is a bad idea. You're going to break everything. And so let's move forward. And yeah, I would say the only other thing I like, and I'll let you you tag on anything you want to add, Bowser. The only thing I would add to this, again, we have no enemies in this game other than the evil empire. Well, I can't even say that anymore. Thanks, Commish. You ruined my whole evil empire bit. Other than YSM, those cheeky bastards. I still don't know if they are aware of the satirical nature of our hate for them, but I think. And I saw this talk of like, absolute horsepower. Sten's talking about how only coming on if certain demands are met, certain types of streams. I mean, look, yeah, I'll throw it out there right now. I'm happy. Me and Bowser are happy to host. I don't need to host. I don't need to be there. I can't. We're not gonna contribute any sort of like intellectual addition to the conversation, but I certainly would love to see a organized conversation amongst these people, because I want to like, are you throwing this type of tantrum when you're speaking on a stream? Are you throwing a tantrum when you're speaking directly to the person? I just think that if we want this game to be successful, which I think it's going to be successful, I'm not worried about that at all. But if we want it to be successful, we need to not act like children. And much like the world right now, everyone fucking hates everyone because of some dick beaters in the White House or some dick beaters in whatever political office you don't like. And the amount of people that have all of a sudden started rooting for the laundry color of their politician like it's a sports team it's comical to me. I'm not a political guy. I'm not going to give you a single fucking political take. But you know what my take is?
I got to take a shit really bad right now.
So should we end the show then? Yeah, so on that note, Bowser's going to go take a shit. I'm going to finish my point, which is
no, sorry, man. It was a good rant, but dude, my stomach is dying right now, dude.
All right, Bowser, good show. We will be back next week with the SGPN Turf Classic, and hopefully we'll be talking about breeding. Hit us up. I mean, again, like would be happy to like be participant in like bringing people together. I saw Sowers get noted as a potential host. I think Sowers does a great job of not being a petulant child with this stuff, and having complaints, voicing those complaints like an adult, and actually having maybe off social media conversations that you don't come off looking like an ass on. So Bowser, enjoy your shit. Let's try to work on getting this stream together. And getting everyone talking about it, because someone tell me why this is the biggest issue. Tell me why we stop. Tell me why this whole season has been derailed by this bullshit. And yeah, great time. Bowser, one bet in the NFL, one bet in college. Then you can.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Actually, I'll make it fun. I'll give out a teaser for each. How about that? So it's kind of 3 picks one. I will give out a 3-team teaser. That's where you add 6 points and you get a little parlay action. We're going to take the Dolphins. We're going to pump that up from a pick 'em to +6. We're going to take your New York Giants and pop that up to +12. And then we're going to take the Cleveland Browns from 5.5 up to 11.5. And the college teaser, we're going to take Kentucky up to +16. Kansas up to +12.5, and we're going to drop Hawaii 7.5 point favorite down to -1.5. I really like Hawaii this week. I think it's a tough travel spot for Sam Houston State, and I think after Hawaii getting winning that miracle game against Stanford, then getting shellacked at Arizona, I think they come home and get right here against a weaker team.
Before I give you a couple picks, oops. Someone likes the Chargers money line tonight. Good luck. The game down in Brazil is always wonky. Bryce pointing out there is an AMA scheduled for early next week.
Sweet.
So stay tuned for that. Again, I'm relatively busy this time of the year, but Bryce, third time, happy to put my services out there. I'm Bowser time dependent, but I'm sure he would be willing to join as well. I'm also just happy to jump on and kind of be an active participant. So, and then as far as my favorite NFL bets, so many to choose from, but we'll start. I guess there's 3 picks I'm going to give out. I'll start with college. Love the Kansas game. I'm a big Jalen Daniels fan this year. Got a 400-1 ticket on him to win the Heisman.
Very nice.
I'm all over that one. So I'm taking Kansas plus the points. As you know, college is not my forte, Bowser. So I'm going to pop over to the NFL. Rattle up rapid fire. Daniel Jones, you can bet on to throw an interception for +130. That's ridiculous. Trevor Lawrence over 11.5 rushing yards. That's silly too. Liam Cohen, he likes his quarterbacks to move a little bit. Joe Flacco's passing yards 235.5 for some reason. That's ridiculous. Go over Browns, one of my favorite picks, +5, +5.5, and on the money line. Bengals, last year was the only time they beat the Browns in Cleveland since 2018. Let that sink in for a little bit. Joe Burrow does not do well against this team. And in passing, Baker Mayfield, when interviewed this offseason, made a comment that when he was with the Browns, he always knew he was going to light up the Bengals. So they must know something. Malik Washington, you might not have heard his name. Third receiver in Miami, been used as a gadget. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua, all talking about how he was lighting up camp. 17.5 receiving yards is the number. Have fun if you want. Take some alt numbers. And then last thing I'll leave you with, which I'll leave you with two things. Jacksonville -3.5, Raiders +2.5, Cleveland +5.5 are my locks this week. Giants win on the money line because we don't lose to the Commander Redskin football team. Shout out to Sowers. I'll see you on the pitch. And anytime defensive round robin touchdown. One of my specialties, Giants, Steelers, Rams. All three get it. It's 807 to 1.
Oh,
807 to 1. Feel free to round robin it. All the two legs are going to be about 80 to 90 to 1. So with that, Bowser has to go prepare for his trip down to the Strip to hang out with me.
Yep.
I will be in and about Vegas, hanging out at the Circa for most of the weekend. We'll be doing a show live from the Circa in the VSiN studio, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific tonight. If you're around, come by afterwards. We will be playing craps. We played craps with some fans yesterday. Really good run. So we'll be back at that Saturday. Who knows? We'll be watching college football somewhere. Sunday, we will be all day at the Westgate in the Barry Manilow Ballroom watching NFL. If you're in Vegas, come by, hang out. We'll hook you up with a drink. And Bowser's really squirming over there. We will be back next week, 5 p.m. on the West Coast, I believe, short of a schedule change, for a breeding discussion, bubble watch, and probably and the SGPN Turf Classic. So I said it all. Bowser, great show.
Fuck yeah. Good stuff.
I hope we did a good job. Hopefully we explained everything. Please send me information. If you have information on any of this stuff, hit me up. I'd love to learn more. As they say, DYORNFA. I think that's what they say. All right, Bowser, we are back in a week. But it's NFL week 1. It's college football week 2. Have a great weekend of bets.
We're gonna go get some pizza here in a little bit.
Have a great weekend on the track, and yeah, we will also, if you want to hang out with us, we will be at Evil Pie in downtown Vegas around 3:30 p.m. today. If you want to catch a slice with us, so good talk, everyone. For Scott, let me try this again. For the season 29 virtual Kentucky Derby winner, breeder, chief horse officer, and man in the desert / Space Rothstein, Scott Bowser. I am Ryan, real money, real digital horseman, Kramer. Let it ride.
Yeah.
Niggas,